Hello everyone. Tonight we're diving into something that should terrify you. Not a creature, not a phenomenon, but a number. 5%. That's how much of Earth's ocean we've explored. 5%. We've sent humans to the moon. We've photographed black holes. We've built rovers that crawl across Mars. But the planet we live on, the one covered 70% by water, remains almost entirely unknown. 95% of it sits in darkness, unmapped, unstudied, filled with things we can't imagine because we've never seen them. So before we descend into this uncomfortable truth, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want content that makes you question why we're looking up when we haven't even looked down. Only if you're genuinely into this though. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know if there are people from Mumbai to Montreal realizing at the exact same moment that we don't actually know our own planet. Now dim those lights. Get comfortable, because we're about to explore why the ocean, Earth's final frontier, has remained a mystery for so long. And trust me, the reasons aren't what you think. Let's start with the number itself, because it gets thrown around constantly and nobody really explains what it means. When scientists say we've explored 5% of the ocean, they don't mean we've seen 5% of the seafloor through a camera. They mean something far more specific and far more disturbing. They mean we've directly observed, with human eyes or high-resolution cameras mounted on submersibles and ROVs, roughly 5% of the total ocean volume. Not the surface, not satellite maps, actual exploration. Boots on the ground, except there are no boots and there is no ground, just crushing darkness and pressure that would instantly kill you. The entire seafloor has been roughly mapped using satellite data, but that data is low resolution. It shows the general shape of underwater mountains and trenches, but it misses everything smaller than about 5 kilometers across. That means seamounts, shipwrecks, entire ecosystems, all invisible on satellite maps. As of June 2025, only about 27.3% of the global seafloor has been mapped with modern high-resolution sonar technology. And mapped doesn't mean explored. It means we've bounced sound waves off the bottom and created detailed topographic images. We still haven't seen most of it, haven't sampled the sediment, haven't catalogued the species living there, haven't understood the geology or chemistry or biology. We've just made a map, and even that map covers barely a quarter of the sea floor. Now here's where it gets worse. The ocean isn't just a sea floor, it's a three-dimensional volume of water stretching from the surface down to depths exceeding 11 kilometers in places like the Mariana Trench. That's over 321 million cubic miles of water. To put that in perspective, imagine a cube 1 mile long, 1 mile wide, and 1 mile deep. You'd need 321 million of those cubes to equal the ocean's volume. And we've explored about 5% of that. 5%. The rest is completely unknown. Scientists estimate that we've seen less than 0.001% of the deep ocean sea floor with human eyes or cameras. That's roughly the size of Rhode Island, one small state, out of an area larger than all of Earth's continents combined. Let that sink in. We know more about the surface of Mars than we know about our own ocean floor. We've mapped Venus in higher resolution than the seabed. We've sent probes to the outer solar system, but we can't reach most of the water on our own planet. Why? Why is the ocean so impossibly difficult to explore? The answers involve physics, engineering, money, politics, and maybe, just maybe, something nobody wants to talk about. First, the physics. The ocean is hostile in ways space isn't. Space is a vacuum. That's easy to engineer for. You build a pressure vessel that holds 1 atmosphere of pressure inside and prevents it from escaping into the void. Simple. Well, not simple, but conceptually straightforward. The ocean is the opposite problem. At the surface, atmospheric pressure is about 14.7 pounds per square inch. That's what our bodies are adapted to. But for every 33 feet you descend into the ocean, the pressure increases by another 14.7 psi. At 660 feet, you're experiencing 20 times the pressure of the surface. At 3,300 feet, it's 100 times. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, 36,000 feet down, the pressure exceeds 15,000 pounds per square inch. That's 8 tons per square inch. That's equivalent to having 100 adult elephants standing on your head. Or, as one researcher put it, 53 hippos stacked on top of each other, balanced on your skull. Everything that goes into the deep ocean must be designed to withstand this crushing force. And I mean everything. The hull of a submersible, the cameras, the lights, the electronic systems, the manipulator arms, the thrusters. Every single component must be pressure rated to depths that would pancake a normal submarine. The US Navy's nuclear submarines max out at around 2,400 feet. Beyond that, the hull would implode. Deep-sea research submersibles use titanium spheres with walls several inches thick. These spheres are mathematically perfect because any imperfection, any tiny flaw in the metal, becomes a failure point where the pressure can crush inward. Building one of these spheres costs millions of dollars, and that's just the pressure vessel. The entire submersible, with all its systems, life support, and scientific equipment, can cost upward of $50 million. Compare that to space exploration. A single NASA launch costs around $500 million true. But that's for a rocket carrying tons of equipment into orbit. Building the ocean exploration equipment itself, the submersibles and ROVs, cost maybe $250 million for a cutting-edge system. Sounds cheaper, right? It's not. Because space missions, once launched, operate in a relatively benign environment. Solar panels provide power. Radio waves transmit data at the speed of light. You can see for millions of miles with telescopes. The ocean offers none of these advantages. Light doesn't penetrate beyond about 660 feet. Below that, it's pitch black. Submersibles must carry their own lights, which means batteries, which means weight, which means limited operational time. Radio waves don't work underwater either. Saltwater absorbs electromagnetic radiation, rendering most wireless communication useless. Tethered submersibles use cables to transmit data and receive power from surface ships, but those cables are vulnerable. They can snag on rocks, break under tension, or be severed by sharp edges. Autonomous underwater vehicles must operate independently, following pre-programmed missions, storing data, and returning to the surface before their batteries die. If something goes wrong, if they get lost or trapped, they're gone. $1 million machines disappearing into the abyss because we couldn't retrieve them. And then there's the cold. Most of the deep ocean hovers just above freezing, around 35 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Electronics don't like the cold. Batteries lose efficiency. Lubricants thicken. Materials become brittle. Engineers must account for all of this, designing systems that operate reliably in conditions that would shut down most technology. Occasionally, there are exceptions. Near hydrothermal vents, where superheated water erupts from the seafloor, temperatures can exceed 700 degrees Fahrenheit. So now you need equipment that can handle both near-freezing conditions and extreme heat, sometimes within the same dive. It's a nightmare, an expensive, complicated, time-consuming nightmare. Space missions deal with temperature extremes too, but they do it in a vacuum where heat transfer is slow. The ocean conducts heat incredibly efficiently. Touch a hot vent and your equipment melts. Enter cold water and thermal shock can shatter components. Every dive is a gamble. Every mission risks equipment worth more than most people's houses. Now, let's talk about the sheer size of the problem. The ocean covers 139 million square miles. That's about 361 million square kilometers. Surveying the area with high-resolution sonar requires ships equipped with multi-beam sonar systems, traveling slowly, methodically, crisscrossing vast expanses of open water. These ships move at maybe 11 to 14 miles per hour, slower than driving through a residential neighborhood, and they're surveying areas thousands of miles from shore. A single research vessel might map a few hundred square miles per day if conditions are perfect. Do the math. It would take centuries to map the entire ocean floor at high resolution, even if we dedicated every available research vessel to the task. Which we don't, because research vessels are expensive to operate. Crew salaries, fuel, maintenance, equipment, insurance, all of it adds up to hundreds of thousands of dollars per day. Most research institutions can't afford that. Universities running oceanography programs struggle to fund even a handful of expeditions per year. Government agencies like NOAA have limited budgets. Private companies focus on economically valuable areas, regions with oil, gas, minerals, or strategic importance. The rest of the ocean gets ignored, not because it's unimportant, because nobody's willing to pay for exploration that doesn't generate immediate profit. This is where things get uncomfortable. Because the lack of ocean exploration isn't just about physics and money, it's about priorities. Humanity collectively spends billions of dollars annually on space exploration. NASA's budget alone is around $25 billion per year. The European Space Agency gets about $7 billion. China spends similar amounts. All of it aimed at exploring space, a realm we will never inhabit, filled with rocks and radiation and absolutely nothing we need for survival. Meanwhile, ocean exploration budgets are a rounding error. NOAA's Office of Ocean Exploration and Research operates on roughly $50 million per year. That's 0.2% of NASA's budget. We spend more on a single Mars rover than we do on exploring the entire ocean for a year. Why? Why do we prioritize space so heavily when the ocean, the thing covering most of our planet, the thing that regulates our climate, provides our oxygen, feeds billions of people, remains almost completely unknown? The answer depends on who you ask. Optimists say it's because space captures public imagination. The stars, the cosmos, the dream of discovering alien life or colonizing other worlds. People donate to space programs. Politicians fund them. Kids grow up wanting to be astronauts, not marine biologists. It's a cultural bias. We look up, not down. Cynics offer a different explanation. And this is where conspiracy theories start to seep in. Because some people believe the lack of ocean exploration isn't accidental, it's deliberate. They argue that governments discovered something in the ocean decades ago, something they don't want the public to know about, and they've quietly redirected resources towards space to avoid further ocean discoveries. Sounds insane, right? Except consider this. In 1960, the US Navy's bathyscaphe Trieste descended to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. It reached Challenger Deep, the deepest point on Earth, carrying two men who spent 20 minutes observing the seafloor before ascending. That was 65 years ago, and in the decades since, only a handful of manned missions have returned to that depth. James Cameron in 2012. Victor Vescovo multiple times starting in 2019. That's it. 3 people across 65 years have seen the deepest part of the ocean with their own eyes. Why so few? The technology exists. We've had deep diving submersibles capable of reaching those depths since the 1960s. So why didn't we keep going? Why did the US Navy, after proving it could reach Challenger Deep, essentially stop exploring the deep ocean? The official explanation is funding. Deep sea exploration doesn't serve military objectives, so the Navy shifted focus to other priorities. Submarines that patrol at medium depths, sonar systems for detecting enemy vessels, technology that has practical, immediate applications. Fair enough, but here's where it gets weird. In 1958, just 2 years before the Trieste's record dive, NASA was founded. Coincidence? Maybe. But conspiracy theorists point out that the timeline is suspicious. The US demonstrates the ability to reach the deepest part of the ocean, and then, almost immediately afterward, creates an agency dedicated to exploring space, as if something they found down there made them want to look elsewhere. What could they have found? Theories vary wildly. Some claim the Navy discovered evidence of ancient civilizations, structures that shouldn't exist at those depths, implying advanced technology existed long before recorded history. Others suggest they encountered non-human intelligence, something living in the deep ocean that we're not ready to acknowledge. A few fringe theorists propose that the ocean floor hides entrances to subterranean realms, tunnels leading to massive caverns beneath the Earth's crust, possibly inhabited. All of this is speculation. There's no credible evidence supporting any of these theories. But the fact that they persist, that people keep asking why we abandoned deep ocean exploration so abruptly, suggests something deeper than simple funding constraints. Whether that something is a cover-up or just human nature preferring the romantic notion of space over the claustrophobic horror of the deep sea is up for debate. What's not up for debate is this. We stopped exploring the ocean with the same intensity we'd started. And that decision, whether intentional or not, left 95% of it unknown. Let's shift to the technical challenges because they're genuinely staggering. Imagine you're designing a robot to explore the deep ocean. First, you need a power source. Batteries work, but they're heavy and have limited capacity. At depth, cold temperatures reduce battery efficiency. You might get a few hours of operation before the robot needs to surface and recharge. Solar panels don't work because there's no sunlight. Nuclear power is theoretically possible, but the cost and regulatory hurdles make it impractical for civilian research. So you're stuck with batteries. Okay, fine. Now you need propulsion. Thrusters that work underwater, generating enough force to move the robot against currents, but small enough to fit within your power budget. You need buoyancy control, tanks that can fill with water to descend or expel water to ascend. But at depth, the pressure compresses everything, including your buoyancy tanks, so you need to account for that in your calculations. You need sensors, cameras obviously, but cameras require light, and light requires power. So you bring LED arrays, bright enough to illuminate the seafloor, which drains your battery even faster. You need sonar to navigate, detect obstacles, measure distances, more power consumption. You need manipulator arms if you want to collect samples. More weight, more complexity, more power. You need communication systems, acoustic modems that transmit data through water using sound waves. They're slow, low bandwidth, prone to interference, but they're the only option. You need data storage because you can't transmit everything in real time. Hard drives that can withstand pressure and cold. And you need all of this contained within pressure housings that won't implode. Every component must be tested, rated, certified. A single failure could mean losing the entire robot. Now multiply that complexity by the fact that you're operating in an environment where visibility is measured in feet, not miles, where currents can push your robot off course, where the seafloor is irregular, filled with rocks, trenches, cliffs, and biological structures that can snag cables or damage equipment. You can't see what's ahead until you're right on top of it. You can't plan routes because detailed maps don't exist. You're navigating blind in the dark, relying on sonar that gives you vague outlines of nearby objects. It's like trying to explore a cave system while blindfolded, wearing oven mitts, and someone keeps pushing you randomly in different directions. Oh, and if you make a mistake, the cave might crush you and everything you're carrying. Fun, right? This is why ocean exploration progresses so slowly. Every dive is meticulously planned. Every mission has contingencies, and even then, things go wrong. Equipment fails, robots get lost, data is corrupted, samples are damaged. Researchers spend months preparing for a single dive that might last 6 hours and yield a few dozen photographs and a handful of sediment samples. It's painstaking, exhausting, frustrating work. And the public doesn't care because the ocean isn't sexy. There are no ocean exploration movies, no blockbuster films about deep-sea robots discovering new species. Space gets Star Wars. The ocean gets documentaries that air at 2 a.m. on educational channels. But the lack of public interest is part of the problem. Because public interest drives funding, and funding drives exploration. If people cared about the ocean the way they care about space, governments would allocate more resources. Universities would train more marine scientists. Companies would invest in ocean technology, but we don't. We ignore it, and so 95% of it remains unexplored. Here's another uncomfortable truth. We're polluting the ocean faster than we're exploring it. Plastic waste reaches the deepest trenches. Microplastics contaminate every sample collected. Industrial chemicals, agricultural runoff, oil spills, all of it ends up in the ocean. We're destroying ecosystems we've never seen. Species are going extinct before we even know they exist. Habitats are being degraded by deep-sea mining, bottom trawling, and climate change. And we're doing all of this in the dark, literally. We don't know what we're destroying because we never bothered to explore it in the first place. It's the ultimate tragedy, losing something irreplaceable without ever knowing what it was. Some conspiracy theories touch on this exact issue. There's a persistent belief that corporations and governments know more about the ocean than they're admitting. That detailed maps exist, classified and hidden from the public, showing everything from resource deposits to anomalous structures. Why would they hide this? Control, obviously. If you know where valuable resources are, you can exploit them before competitors arrive. If you've discovered something strange, something that challenges established science or history, you can bury it to avoid uncomfortable questions. There's precedent for this kind of secrecy. During the Cold War, the US and Soviet Union both conducted extensive underwater mapping for military purposes. Submarine routes, undersea cable locations, strategic choke points. Much of that data remains classified. Even today, detailed bathymetric maps of certain regions are restricted. Why? National security, allegedly. But it raises the question, what else is hidden in those classified data sets? Have military surveys discovered things that civilian scientists haven't been allowed to see? Are there regions of the ocean that are off limits for reasons beyond security? Some theorists point to specific locations. The Mariana Trench, obviously, but also areas like the Devil's Sea near Japan, a region similar to the Bermuda Triangle, where ships and planes have vanished under mysterious circumstances. The Sargasso Sea, a vast area of the Atlantic Ocean with no coastline, characterized by calm waters and floating seaweed, where compasses allegedly malfunction and strange phenomena occur. Are these just stories? Exaggerations fueled by maritime superstition? Or is there something genuinely anomalous about these regions that governments would rather not publicize? Then there's the alien angle. Because of course there is. Some conspiracy theorists believe that extraterrestrials don't just visit Earth, they live here, specifically in the ocean. The theory goes that UFOs, or more accurately USOs, unidentified submerged objects, are extraterrestrial craft using the ocean as a base of operations. The deep ocean provides perfect cover. It's remote, inaccessible, unexplored. You could hide entire underwater civilizations down there and humans would never know. Supporters of this theory cite reports from naval personnel who've witnessed objects entering or exiting the water at high speeds, sonar contacts that move in ways no known technology can match, acoustic anomalies that don't correspond to any identified marine life or geological process. Are these extraterrestrials? Almost certainly not. Most unexplained phenomena have mundane explanations once investigated. But the fact that we can't investigate most of the ocean means these theories persist. Because we can't definitively rule them out. We can't say no, there's nothing down there because we haven't looked. And that ignorance, that vast unknown, is fertile ground for speculation. Let's talk about Atlantis because we have to. The lost city, described by Plato as a powerful civilization that sank beneath the waves, has captured imaginations for millennia. Most historians agree Atlantis was a fictional allegory Plato used to make philosophical points about hubris and governance. But that doesn't stop people from searching for it. And the ocean, being mostly unexplored, is the perfect place to hide a lost civilization. Over the years, various underwater structures have been proposed as potential Atlantis sites. The Bimini Road in the Bahamas, a formation of limestone blocks that some claim is an ancient road or wall. Geological consensus says it's natural beach rock, but believers aren't convinced. Underwater ruins off the coast of Cuba, Greece, Japan, all proposed as possible Atlantis locations. None have panned out. But here's the thing, if an advanced civilization did exist 10 or 20,000 years ago, and if it was located in coastal areas that are now submerged due to rising sea levels after the Ice Age, we wouldn't necessarily know. We haven't explored those areas thoroughly. Sea levels rose significantly when the glaciers melted. Coastlines shifted. Entire landscapes were flooded. If humans built cities in those areas, They're now underwater, buried under sediment, degraded by millennia of currents and marine growth. Finding them would require extensive surveying, something we haven't done. So while Atlantis, as described by Plato, probably didn't exist, the idea that we might find evidence of lost civilizations on the ocean floor isn't completely absurd. It's unlikely, but not impossible. Now let's address the bloop. In 1997, NOAA detected an extremely powerful, ultra-low frequency sound in the Pacific Ocean. The sound, nicknamed the bloop, was loud enough to be picked up by sensors over 3,000 miles apart. When researchers analyzed the frequency pattern, it resembled biological vocalizations. Specifically, it matched the sounds made by marine mammals, but scaled up to an impossible size. If the bloop was made by an animal, that animal would dwarf a blue whale, the largest creature ever known to exist. Naturally, this sparked theories about undiscovered giant sea creatures. Maybe a massive deep-sea squid, maybe a prehistoric survivor, a plesiosaur or something similar, living in unexplored trenches. NOAA later determined the bloop was caused by an ice quake, a fracturing of Antarctic ice shelves. The sound profile matched, and the origin point was near Antarctica. Mystery solved, right? Except some researchers pointed out discrepancies. The bloop's origin was calculated to be in the southern Pacific, not directly near the ice shelves. The sound's characteristics, while similar to ice fracturing, had anomalies that didn't perfectly match. Could it have been ice? Probably. But the fact that a sound that loud and strange was detected, and that it took years to explain, highlights how little we monitor the ocean. If something truly anomalous happened down there, we might not even notice. And if we did, we might not be able to investigate. There are other unexplained sounds. Julia, recorded in 1999, a sound lasting about 15 seconds that was loud enough to be heard across the Pacific. Researchers believe it was also ice-related, but it's never been definitively confirmed. The 52 Hertz whale, nicknamed the loneliest whale in the world, is a whale that vocalizes at a frequency higher than any known species, suggesting it might be a hybrid or a mutant that can't communicate with others of its kind. We've tracked this whale for decades. We've never seen it. Don't know what species it is. It's just a sound moving through the ocean, alone. Then there are sounds we can't explain at all. Bloops and hums and clicks that appear in acoustic data, defy classification, and disappear. Maybe they're geological, maybe they're biological, maybe their equipment malfunctions. We don't know, because the ocean is too big, too deep, and we're not listening carefully enough. Here's a thought that should disturb you. The ocean is changing faster than we can explore it. Climate change is warming the water, altering currents, acidifying the pH, depleting oxygen in deep regions. These changes are happening now. Species are migrating, ecosystems are collapsing, coral reefs are bleaching, and we're documenting maybe a fraction of it. The rest is happening in the dark, unseen, unrecorded. We're losing biodiversity, losing habitats, losing resources we didn't even know existed. Future generations will ask us why we didn't do more, why we didn't explore the ocean when we had the chance, why we prioritized space over the planet we actually live on, and we won't have good answers. Because the truth is uncomfortable. We didn't care enough. It wasn't exciting. It didn't inspire us. So we let it remain unknown. And now it's too late to learn about species that are already extinct. Too late to study ecosystems that have already been destroyed. too late to understand what we lost. But it's not all doom and gloom. Technology is advancing. Autonomous underwater vehicles are getting better, cheaper, more capable. AI is helping us process the massive amounts of data collected during ocean surveys. Satellite technology is improving, allowing us to detect underwater features from space. Private companies are investing in ocean exploration, not just for resources, but for pure science. Projects like Seabed 2030, an international initiative to map the entire ocean floor by 2030, are making progress. As of June 2025, they've mapped over 27% of the seafloor at high resolution. That's up from less than 6% in 2017. Still not enough, but it's progress. And every new map, every new survey, reveals things we didn't expect. Underwater volcanoes, massive geological formations, new species, ancient shipwrecks. Each discovery reminds us how much we still don't know. So why have we only explored 5% of the ocean? Because it's hard, because it's expensive, because it's not a priority, because space is sexier, because the ocean is dark and cold and hostile and doesn't capture public imagination the way a starry sky does. But maybe, just maybe, it's also because we're afraid of what we'll find. Because the unknown is terrifying, and the ocean is the ultimate unknown. A vast, dark, crushing realm where the rules of the surface world don't apply. Where pressure and darkness and isolation are absolute. Where creatures evolved over millions of years to thrive in conditions that would kill us instantly. We're not meant to be there. The ocean makes that clear every time we try to explore it. But we should try anyway, because it's our planet, and we should understand it before it's too late, before the unknown becomes the unknowable, before 95% turns into 100. If you made it this far, thank you. Seriously. You just spent time learning why humanity has failed to explore its own oceans. That matters. Hit that like button if this made you think. Subscribe if you want more content about the mysteries we ignore, and leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Should we focus on the ocean or space? Do you believe the conspiracy theories, or are they just stories we tell ourselves to make the unknown less frightening? Let me know where you're watching from, because there are people all over the world right now staring at the same ocean, wondering what's beneath the waves. And most of us will never know, because we never bother to look.